Hi, and you're very welcome to episode 14 of the Women's National League podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. My name is Earley, and my co-host today, as always, is Steph Roche. Steph, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Breifne. Happy to be back.
It's nice to be back because it's been, I think, over a month since we put a show out because international breaks, the mid-season break in there as well, and then I suppose just really availability because it's kind of been a busy period for you, Steph. Some big personal news, and now you've got your time planned with some events that you're organising at some point in the future. Tell us about, I suppose, your good news over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so myself and Dean got engaged on my birthday. He asked me, so a strange one because people keep asking me, was it a surprise? We're together nearly 14 years, so it probably shouldn't be a surprise, but I just wasn't expecting it at all. But yeah, just absolutely delighted the last few weeks, as you say, of being kind of full of the excitement of that. And obviously we haven't been playing, so it's been kind of off football at the moment. But yeah, all focus back now onto football and our game tomorrow, or our game this weekend.
Of course, as we talk today, it's Friday afternoon. The big game of the weekend, of course, you're going to be involved in that. Peamount and Shels lock horns tomorrow. It's a top of the table clash. First blood in this battle all year did go to yourselves a couple of weeks ago, but I suppose Shels will be going for a bit of revenge. Now, we do talk to Pearl Slattery last week, but because we didn't put a show out last week, it's actually going to go out as part of today's show. So I caught up with her last week when you were all busy with all your cake tasting and all that stuff. So Pearl, of course, joined me for a chat last week. We will include that later in the show, but we might chat to you a little bit later on also about what the Peamount camp are doing ahead of the game at the weekend. But first, let's take a look back towards last weekend. And of course, there was a full round of fixtures there. Peamount had a bye, so as you said, you haven't kicked the ball in competitive action in a while over at Peamount. Of course, the fixtures played over the weekend, and let's go backwards in chronological order. Sunday afternoon in Jackman Park in Limerick, Treaty United and Athlone Town. Athlone, probably the stronger side, without Murren Devaney, of course, involved with Leitrim's final in Division 4 in the Little National Ladies Football League in Gaelic football, but still happy enough to come away with 2 points. Your own thoughts on the game, Steph?
Yeah, I think so. I think Athlone probably, as you say, were probably maybe the stronger team throughout. Aoife Cronin, maybe a little bit of luck with the first goal, but a good finish for her second goal. And I think both teams probably going into that game probably would have been looking to try and get the win. But yeah, I think overall, points from each will probably be happy enough.
Yeah, her second and third goals of the season. A bit of a defensive lapse from Fiona Owens, straight back pass. She can just nab onto it, but two excellent finishes. I thought her goal at the end of the game to equalise was probably the pick of the bunch of the four. The two Athlone goals quite happy with, but the pick of the bunch for me was Aoife Cronin's second one, the equaliser. Just a great through ball from the midfield, and she just pinged it from the edge of the box and really didn't give much of a chance to the goalkeeper in that one at all. So both sides relatively happy with the point, but I suppose, as you said, it's a chance for them maybe to get a win, so might be a slight level of disappointment that they just couldn't hold on there. Wexford Youths, DLR Waves, two sides kind of battling out just below the top two spaces in the league that we'll talk about a little bit more in the programme later on. Wexford came out on top. They kind of just dominated this from start to finish, 3-1. DLR got one back late on, but Wexford sealed it with a goal with 10 minutes to go. So Wexford, it's kind of what we would have expected going into this game, surely.
Yeah, I think so. I think we touched on DLR a little bit at the start of the season, how maybe they might be a bit of a surprise package, but I do think Wexford, having played us in our last game, I think they've definitely hit a bit of momentum. Obviously, I think Tom Elms not being the manager anymore, I think that it kind of would worry maybe that might have an effect on them, but I think they have, as I said, that little bit of momentum with them, and they're playing quite well at the moment. So I think going into that game, I would have thought that it was maybe Wexford's to lose as such. And as I said, I think they're in good form at the moment, playing some good football, and from what I've seen of the game, probably deserve the win in the end.
Yeah, the goals, of course, coming from Limerick Grant, Orla Conlon, and an own goal for Niamh Barnes almost immediately after Carla McManus had given them a bit of life in that game. But a late own goal there proved to be the final score of the game. So 3 points for Wexford. They managed to put their little seal on third place in the league for the time being. Bows and Galway moved to Dalymount at the last minute, and I don't know where to start on this one. A great goal from from Galway to start it. We won't talk much about the effort for the header early on in the move, but the layback and the shoot from Sinead Donovan from distance, I just thought it was great. Top corner from about 25-30 yards. There was no stopping it.
Yeah, as you say, good kind of cross into the box, and then there was a little bit of kind of a scramble. As you say, she went to try and head it and it got cleared, but as you say, the touchback, the layout for the shot, and then the finish was a great finish, in fairness, from Donovan. I think the worry for Galway will probably be the defending for that goal. I think we're all for promoting the league and talking about the good things that happen, but I think it's important to kind of highlight the bad stuff as well, because I think that was very, very poor defending, and the wall splitting the way it did, and for the keeper to be beaten with the ball, the pace on the shot wasn't even that good, or it wasn't even that hard. So it's a disappointing goal, and that's kind of the goals that you don't want to see put up on social media that people see, because it was a terrible, terrible goal to concede from Galway's point of view, I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't see all of the game either, but from the commentary on the highlights, it would indicate that it was probably unlucky from Maja Zayek's point of view, that she had a good game up to that point. But I don't think it's fair to just put all the blame on the goalkeeper. Like, the idea of a wall is that it protects a certain area of the goal, and then the keeper takes responsibility for the other half of the goal. The wall literally just split right down the middle, and the ball, as you said, it wasn't even that fast. It took a relatively normal bounce and just bounced over Zayek. And I don't know, I think teams at this level have to be doing better than that. We like promoting the league, we like talking about the positives, but I think we have to call it out when it's just not good enough, really.
Exactly. And I think, look, obviously Nimi makes her run down the line. You can maybe make an argument for the defender, that people in the wall maybe get a little bit distracted by that run, but it's for the wall to break the way it did. And as you say, the shot didn't have much power on it. The keeper needs to get across and deal with that. So it was, as I said, from a Galway point of view, I'd be more disappointed, or more be focusing on the disappointing to be conceding a goal like that than the cracking goal that they did get, because that's a positive to take from the game. But I'd be more kind of worried about, as I said, the defending and the way that goal did go in.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a case of 2 points dropped for Galway late on in that game. And nice to have a game in Dalymount, though. It's a pity that, I suppose, Bows don't get to play more of their games at the storied home of Irish football.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see that. And I think we spoke about that at the start of the season, when we had Niamh on. Look, that's a great thing to see. I think it's great to see all the teams being able to play in the male stadium as such, where you wouldn't really get to see many of the Women's National League games being played in the past. So it is a step forward in the right direction, and hopefully as the season goes on, there'll be more and more of the Bows girls games being played there.
Yeah, and then of course the final game that was played last weekend, Shels versus Cork City. Noelle Murray, the only scorer in the game, 21 minutes in. Shels probably underperformed in terms of a 1-0 scoreline, but they had all the possession, all the pressure, but just couldn't break down Cork, who defended resolutely the whole way through the game. 1-0 the final score. They might be disappointed, but they still took all 3 points, and they put themselves in the frame to kind of have set up a top of the table clash with yourselves this weekend. It's another win. It's consistent. You looking forward to this weekend? But let's talk about the Cork game first. From Shel's point of view, our team's getting harder to break down, as we're seeing with these kind of tighter results than maybe the play would indicate.
Yeah, I think from Cork's point of view, I think one of my, I don't even want to say criticisms, because I think I've been quite positive when I speak about them, but I think one of my criticisms would be that maybe they're a little bit naive at times going into games, and they tried to play out too much, and they, don't get me wrong, they did try to play out a little bit in the game, but look, I think teams need to learn to play against, as we say, the stronger sides within the league, and play within their limits. And I think Cork tried to do that, and as you say, they frustrated them. Shels had the majority of possession, and look, Noelle got the goal, and I'm sure Shels will be looking back at it and thinking they've got the win, and that's all that matters. But yeah, I do think that teams like Cork coming up against the likes of Shels, ourselves, Wexford, are probably going to have to, as I say, change maybe their approach a little bit at times. And as much as I'm happy to see teams playing a certain way and trying to play football, you have to kind of, as I said, play within your means and look to try and get the best results you can by maybe changing a little bit of your setup before these big games. But yeah, look, Cork frustrated them. Didn't probably give up many opportunities, but I'm sure Shels will be delighted. And I think I'm actually have to say I'm very happy for Noelle as well, because I think she'll shine under Noel King. I thought that at the start of the season. I think she would have been a player who Noel would have known all about throughout the underage system. And I kind of played with Noelle for a long time, and Noelle's a fantastic player. And I think she's really started to kind of blossom under Noel. And I think this will be a good season for herself too.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose we've talked about Cork's goalkeepers a lot this season. Abby McCarthy impressed in a long periods of the early games of the season. Maria Sullivan, last year's goalkeeper, has come back from the US from her scholarship, has taken the jersey over after a couple of games, had an absolute stormer at the weekend, made some unbelievable saves, and I think deserves a lot of credit for that score. But I think overall from Cork, it's great to see a team that still, let's be honest, haven't managed to win this season. But Shels, one of the top two sides in the league, to keep them to 1-0, it's probably their best result of the season, despite the defeat.
Yeah, look, I don't think they look at it in that sense. I think losing a game is never going to be good. But I think, look, it's, as I said before, they're a young team. They're trying to play a certain way. And look, we obviously have done our own analysis pieces and stuff, so we watched a lot of the game back. And I think they set up in a way where they could be hard to beat and try to get little breaks, like win the ball in the break and go and try and get their goal. But that wasn't to be. And as you said, Maria Sullivan had a very good game too. So look, I think you can't say they'll be happy with it, but I'm sure there'll be positives to take from the game for them.
That's probably a much better way of putting it than the way I did it. Listen, I suppose that brings us to the end of the games last weekend. Let's quickly just take a quick look at the league table as we go into this round. I think it's round 11 of games in the championship so far, maybe round 12. I'm not quite sure, but it's a bit weird when there's the odd game out to kind of work it out. Yourselves and Shels currently level on top of the table on goal difference, on points. It's very similar to the men's table at the moment. Yedo, however, do have that game in hand, haven't been idle last weekend. Wexford 4 points further back on 21 points, and then DLO on 16, albeit again with that game in hand. And then we're kind of looking at the lower end of the table after that. Galway still kind of in touch, 13 points from 10 games. Bowes, Treaty both on 8, while Athlone on 6 and Cork on 3 prop up the table. But as we saw last week with Cork's 1-0 defeat to Shels, anything is possible. Games aren't as tight, they aren't as wide open maybe as they had been a couple of seasons ago between teams at the top and teams at the bottom. I think that gap is closing week on week. We might have a little bit of I know the big game of the weekend, everyone's talking about it all week on social media, Peamount versus Shels. Let's maybe take a little look inside the Shels camp. Now, this is a sit down I had with Pearl Slattery about a week ago before they played Cork last weekend. Let's hear what she had to say about how things are going on in Shels at the moment. And we did talk a good bit about the game tomorrow. Pearl Slattery, you're very, very welcome to the show.
Thanks a million, Breifne. Looking forward to it.
No problem at all. Listen, it's been an interesting kind of season and a half with all the COVID that's gone on over the last 15 months or so. I use the word interesting. Other people might use a different word. But we're now in a kind of a normal enough space. People starting to get back into games, albeit in small numbers. How has the last 15 months been for you personally, I suppose, and I suppose the crew at Shels?
Yeah, I think, like everybody, it's been a bit mad, hasn't it? It's been a time that, I don't know, none of us really seen coming, and then all of a sudden it hits you and it changes your whole world. And I think, like everybody, we just had to deal with it as it came. And especially with football, it was weird because last season we were probably a day out before kicking off the actual season, and then COVID hit and we had to cancel it and postpone it. And that was after like a 10-week preseason, so it was heavy going. It was tough mentally and stuff. And I always say it to people, like, you know, I suppose this time made us all really appreciate what sports does for us. You know, when it was taken away, especially myself, you know, I eat, breathe, and sleep football. So when that was removed from my life, it was difficult, like, you know. But I think now when I look back, it's just gave me that appreciation of the sport, of what Shels, what my teammates, you know, actually do for me week to week. And I think that it gave us all that kind of feeling that, you know, we probably took it for granted a little bit prior to COVID coming in. So look, I'm just delighted now that the sport is back, and we were very lucky to get last season up and running and finished, and then really lucky now, and we are very lucky in the country in general that us and the men's were obviously allowed to come in for pre-season in early or late January, early February. So we were blessed with that, and I'm very lucky that we could continue. And look, thank God now it's hopefully, please God, coming to an end.
You mentioned that you work for the FAI and that your full-time job is in football. You're one of, I suppose, a few women in the game, a few people in the women's game, should I say, who actually their full-time income derives from the game. Maybe not in the way you might have dreamed of as a little girl, but still it's very much involved in the day-to-day run of the game. Tell us a bit about the role you have with the FAI and kind of what type of work you do within the game in your day job.
Yeah, so look, I obviously growing up, I was always football mad, Breifne, like just like since a younger age, and I always wanted to play. And then I went to the States for a while. I came back and I heard about the National League starting off, so I wanted to get back and play in the National League, and obviously played with Raheny initially, and then we merged with Shels. And so I look, not lucky, or I suppose, as many of the players go abroad and stuff, I knew I'd be staying at home. And I suppose when I came back from the States, it was kind of figure out what I wanted to do. But I always knew I wanted to work with football because, as I said to you, it's my life. It's the only interest I really have. And I started to volunteer a lot when I came home from the States, and knew if I got my name out there, did a lot of work, that, something might come up. And I always speak about Stephen Rice, who was a great mentor to me. I worked with him for a year or two, and ended up getting a job in the FEI, working in the summer soccer school. So that's where I started initially for 2 years. It's one of our biggest programs, so that was a brilliant experience for me. And then I moved into the women's department, which was, ideal for me. It made sense. I was a women's player. I knew the game as in, like, from a player's perspective, but to be honest, that 8 months in the women's department completely opened my eyes to, other stuff, governance, all that other stuff that as a player you probably don't realise, and all the work that goes on in the background to allow us to play, and that was a big learning curve for me. And after those 8 months, a job, a development officer in terms of the women's game, just based around the women's game, came up in Dublin, and I was lucky enough to get one of those roles. Keith O'Halloran was working on the north side, I was working on the south side, so I did that for 2 years. And then just with the new restructure then in the FEI since, late 2020, early 2021, a new job opportunity came up for me, from programme coordinator for women's football in the country. And I just felt, look, to be honest, if I was totally honest, I didn't expect to be in a role like this now. But when the job came up, I felt like I had to go for it. I felt like a role like that, females had to believe in themselves and go for it. And that, I fought with myself for weeks whether I wanted to leave the development officer job, because I loved being out on the grounds and working with clubs. And look, I thought about it for a few weeks, and I just thought, it's really important that females go for it. It's an important role. I care about the women's game in the country. I wanted to do well. So luckily enough, I went for it and I got it, and I've been, delighted. I only started since January, but it's a national role. I'll be working with a lot of the leagues, a lot of the clubs and grassroots, in terms of growing the women's game. So as I said, I'm really passionate about it. I love the game. I obviously love our country, and I just want to do well for the FEI and just grow the game in this country, because I think everybody can see the potential that the women's game has now around the world. It's growing. You can see it in our league even now, all the social media stuff, all the marketing and promotion. It's growing massively, and even, things like this that have never been done before. It's just taking huge strides, but I just think it's important that we don't stay still now and applaud ourselves and say, is this great? Now we have to keep moving forward now, and that the girls' game just becomes the norm. And look, I'll have a big part to play in that in terms of grassroots and working with, underage and clubs and league development and all that sort of stuff. So look, to me, I'm very lucky. And as you said, I work with football full time, and I'm not afraid to say it. It doesn't feel like work because I love it so much. So I'm very lucky.
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose, the senior game, as you mentioned, it's going from strength to strength. The profile is increasing, the quality is increasing. We're seeing some fantastic goals. I know you even chipped in yourself with a fairly decent build-up. You started the move, you finished the move. Going to be a contender for goal of the season across the league. I have no doubt. We might talk about that a little bit later. But in terms of the actual grassroots that you're working on, what's the health of that like? Because I know locally here, there's no junior ladies team. If you're not playing National League and you have to go to Athlone, and I'm based in Leitrim in the northwest, but you have to go to Athlone, Galway, or Dublin to play. There is under 17, obviously, with Sligo Rovers there, but and under 19 this season. But in terms of junior football, if you're not involved in one of those National League setups, you're not quite at the standard. There's nothing after under 18 for girls in the region. They tend to gravitate towards other sports, mostly Gaelic football, because there's very little rugby as well. What's the health like, and what's the future like for the girls maybe reaching that age that aren't quite good enough to go into National League but want to stay playing the sport?
Yeah, look, that's a great point, I think. And like I say this to everybody in my job, Breifne, and all the programs I run around the country, like not everybody's going to go National League. Not everybody's want it. Look, first of all, they mightn't be good enough, and that's okay. But a lot of people just might not want to play at National League level. They don't like that competitive environment where, like, players like myself and other players, we breed off that stuff. We want it. We want to be in that environment, but not everybody does in the country. And I think that's important for us to remind ourselves at times when we are looking at structures, when we are looking at pathways. And as I said to you, before, I think we're in a better place now in the FAI. We really, really are. And I think structures and pathways and stuff, will be constantly looked at, and listening to people out on the ground and what's working and what's not is really important. But I think as a whole, and in terms of growing the game, even never mind getting to those age groups, I think we have to get girls involved in our sport a lot younger. And that's my experience from being out on the ground. Other sports are getting them in way younger, and we've lost them by the age of 8, 9, 10. So if we can get them in now at 4, 5, 6, and 8, or whatever it might be, but getting them in at that 4, 5, and 6-year-old age group is massive for me, and that'll be a big part of my job now. We're rolling out a new program. It's called UEFA Disney Playmakers with UEFA. That's launching this September with 30 clubs around the country. And I'm not sure if you know, but the FAI has took under like a new structure to how we will run. So there's 8 new regions. Each region has a regional manager now. There's regional teams full of development officers and program coordinators, which I'm one of them. And we'll be all working closely together now in the region. So I think this COVID time as well has given us an opportunity as staff to, I suppose, SWOT of our areas, look at where the gaps are, look at what's working well and what's not. And I think in time we'll see the benefit of that. But I think getting girls in at a younger age group, and then also realising that different age groups, that not everybody wants to play that elite side, and that's fine, and just making sure that there's opportunities there for everybody to play their sport. So if you're not in National League, where are the girls going that are outside that, and are we providing enough for them to stay involved in their game? And I think there's some really good stuff as well around the country, in terms of what is available. I do think we need to remember that not everyone's going to want to play in the National League, and that's fine. And it's looking at the structures and the pathways and how we can keep people involved.
Yeah, I suppose we didn't mean to go down this direction when we invited you on the show, but we just kind of wandered down it. I suppose finally on the non-National League stuff that we will get into very shortly, but finally on that, I suppose the FAI has been a punching bag, sometimes rightly, sometimes unfairly, over the last couple of years, and an easy target for everything that's gone wrong in the game. Again, sometimes maybe warranted, most of the time probably not warranted, but the mood has been negative out of Abbottstown for a while. What's it like in Abbottstown on a daily basis? Is the atmosphere better? Are people more positive about the future of the organisation, the future of the game?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think, look, what's happened in the past has happened in the past, and try leave it there. I think now all we can do is look forward, because I've always said to people, I'm very thankful to the FAI because I am working in football full time now because of them. Yes, I worked really hard to get there, but I'm also very thankful. They've helped me, supported me, got me on the coach ed pathway. So I've as I said to you before I came on, I've loved every minute of my nearly 6 years being there. And I think look, the past is the past, and we're all looking forward now as staff. And as I say this to all people as well, there's a lot of brilliant people in there who are doing great work, who the public probably don't see a lot of the times because they're just normal people getting involved or going on with their day and doing their day-to-day things. But in fairness, since Jonathan came in, he's met us all, and it's a really exciting time, I think. But as I said to you, it will take time, and just hopefully everybody gives the place that time now to learn from the past, move forward, because we're all involved in the game. We're on the association because we love the sport and we want it to do well. And please God, we can do that now by looking forward together.
Yeah, I suppose the FAI is there as an umbrella body for everybody involved in the game. So we are all part of the FAI, maybe smaller ways than others, but that is, I suppose, one way of looking at it. In terms of the football, let's talk about football, because obviously that's why we're here on the show this week. It's been a great start for Shels. Obviously, the defeat to Peamount probably stands out as one relatively dark spot on the season so far, but overall, Shels, you played probably the best football in the division this year. You must be happy with that, at least in terms of the fact that you're probably, well, there's no problem, you're definitely the best footballing side in the league this year.
Yeah, I think, look, we've had a good start to the season so far. We're in the second round of games now, so we've been pretty happy with our fourth round. As you said, look, the Peamount defeat, when we look back at that game, we probably didn't play our best game if we really, I suppose, analyse ourselves. We had a really good second half, and it was just unfortunate we couldn't bring that into the first half. And by then, in fairness to Peamount, they're quite ruthless, and they'd already scored 2, and we came out 2-1, obviously a 2-1 defeat. But look, that's football. There's still plenty to be played. We still have to play them twice. We still have to play everybody twice. But in terms of the fourth round, we were delighted. Everybody knows us that we are a good footballing side, but we've been working on the other stuff as well, you know, work ethic, all that sort of stuff. And I've been very proud of the girls this year because we've took that up a notch and we're in a good place, as I said. But look, we won't look too far ahead and we'll just keep taking it each week as it comes. Every week is a challenge. Every week is a different game. And we just try to go into every game with a focus and try win if we can.
Yeah, of course. There was a draw with Wexford in there as well, but Peamount in the last game before the mid-season break also drew Wexford. So they kind of cancel each other out in terms of points dropped in that title race. Peamount, of course, will be back on the radar in a couple of weeks' time. What's the rivalry like between those clubs? I know Steph isn't with us today, but in terms of what's the, I suppose, is there an animosity there? Is there a professional respect? What's the relationship like between yourself and those players? Because you all know each other so well. You've played with each other on international teams, regional teams, league teams as you kind of came through the ranks.
Yeah, I think there is a professional respect, to be honest. Like, even if you're speaking there about the Wexford game, to me, it felt like a defeat after that game because I just felt we created enough chances in that game to win it. And look, I'm not just saying in terms of striker scoring goals. I had a chance in that game as well. And my weekend was ruined, when I didn't put it away. But that game initially felt like a defeat. But in fairness, when Wexford got the draw at the Peas, I think it was a good result for the league because it keeps the title race open. But I think in terms of the three teams and us and Peamount, there is that professional respect. We all know each other so well. Obviously, we've been playing against each other for years, but we all want to win. That's why we play. So there is that professional respect. But when the whistle blows, that goes out the window. Both teams want to win, and they're always entertaining games. They're always a good battle, and it's always a good game to watch. And look, I think we're there next game. We have Cork 4, so we won't even think about the Peamount game yet. It's Cork 4 this weekend, and when we win that, then we can focus on Peamount. But they're always enjoyable games every year, and I think the next game we'll show that again.
Yeah, of course, you mentioned they're obviously off this weekend. They have no game, but you play Cork at home. A victory will put you top of the table. 2 goals will put you clear top of the table on goal difference at least. Will that be an added advantage going to Peamount the week after, even if you haven't thought ahead to that game, but going in at the top of the table, albeit with a game more played, does it make that a little bit of kind of a bragging rights going into that game?
To me, if I'm honest, not really. I think it looks nice, doesn't it, when you're going in that week and Women's National League are posting that we're top of the table, but we also know we have to play them then and show up and get points. That's the biggest thing for me. So look, it can look lovely at the time, but you never win a league, do you, in the second round of games or going into a game like that. You want to be on the top of the table when it comes to the last game of the season. That's when I'm the happiest, you know what I mean? So look, we won't take that and buy that. As I said to you, I won't look beyond Cork. I can't, because every game in this league is a challenge. Cork themselves now have a new manager in, so I'm sure the girls will all want to impress them. And I think we'd be silly if we look beyond Cork. And as I said to you, this league has shown over the years that probably to everybody outside we're the favourites, but us as a group and Noel wouldn't allow it. We give every team respect, and we never go into a game just thinking we're guaranteed a win. We win focused. We try to do our best, and obviously we want to win the game. And then, as I said to you, once we get by Cork and hopefully we win, we can focus then on the next game, which is Peace.
Yeah, and it's funny, you mentioned Noel and new managers in Cork and stuff. Noel's only 9 games into his reign as Shel's manager, but already there's 3 or 4 managers fresher than him in the league. It's got a very new feel to it this year. What's Noel been like? I suppose he's well established in the women's game, having managed Ireland for the best part of a decade, if not a little bit longer. Hugely experienced coach in the League of Ireland at international level with the under-21s, even with a little spell in charge of the seniors. How have you found working under him this year at club level? What has he brought to the table that maybe might not have been there in previous seasons?
Yeah, look, he's been excellent. To be fair, he obviously had a bit of time out of the game. So when I think, he went for the Shels job, I think he was itching to get back involved in the girls' game. And obviously I knew Noel through work and stuff, but I wasn't one that was probably lucky enough to work under him as a player. Some of them had. So I was fascinated, I suppose, a man of his quality and his experience, as we said, like all the teams he's worked with before. I was dying to, work under him and play for him. And since he's come in, he's just been a ball of enthusiasm, and it's fed down on us. And he's such a nice way about him, even in games. When things are probably not going our way, he's just a great way about him. He's demanding. Don't let me fool you. He's very, very demanding, but I like that. But he probably has his pro license, all that. But in terms of, you know, for me, one of his biggest, I suppose, assets is, you know, you want to play from as a player, you want to do well from, and when you don't play well as a player, as you know, as one of these players in a game, you nearly feel like you're letting him down. And I think that's a great quality as a coach. And look, I've played under many managers for many years, and I've always said that if, you know, players want to play for you, you know, forget qualifications, forget how good you are as a coach, you're already winning. And I think he has that in abundance. And he's brought in, look, a great background team. He has Joey there, Joey Malone. He's brought in his son Kieran, who, you know, you just love Kieran, on all the girls. And then obviously Steve Williams, goalkeeping coach. So he's brought in good staff behind him. There's good people in the background like Gordon and stuff like that give him a hand. And then obviously, you know, he's a brilliant coach. He's the way he wants us to play. And as I said to you, he's very demanding, but, you know, we've just enjoyed since he's come in. And look, hopefully we can keep going, keep doing things well for him, and then hopefully at the end of the season we've something to show from, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of working with him one or two World University Games squads back in the day, and always a bundle of enthusiasm and a bundle of positivity around as well. You know, has a great way about him, as you said, and it's great to watch the style of football he had. Now, you've always had that type of football, but he really seems to have pushed it on a level. You've dominated games. Let's talk before I let you go about that goal and that loan, because as you said off air, it doesn't happen every week. You got the ball in your own half or just on the halfway line. I think it was Emily Whelan you found with a lovely pass, took it back from her and just clipped it over the goalkeeper from a decent distance out. Were you practicing that? Is that just one of these things that just kind of happens, or is it just in the moment to see what happens when you hit it?
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't practicing it as a centre half. To be something wrong if I was practicing that in training. But in fairness, Noel and Joe, we play a lot of, you know, small-sided games with us, with 2 big goals in small areas, and it's all about shooting, really. So no matter what player you are or what position you're in, you're always getting shots off, you know. And after the game, I'd actually said to Joey when it went in, you know, maybe it's those little small-sided games. But in terms of the games itself, like, we knew going to Athlone that day, it'd be tough. First game of the season, you know, new management, some new players who've come in, and that gel. And look, in fairness to Athlone, they're well organised. There's some quality players. And I said even after that game, they'll take points off teams. And we've seen some really good performances for them since. So we're just finding it a little bit hard to break them down that day. And, you know, in the first half, of fairness, Stapo had stepped in really well a lot of the times. And we were just still 0-0 at that point. And I just remember Rachel Graham played it out to me and there was space in front of me. And I just thought, right, I'm going to drive in here. And I kept driving. And then I kind of thought, well, you know, I'm halfway here now, so I might as well keep going. And noticed Emily. So I just played it into her. But to be honest, I didn't expect the back. I played it into Emily and she took a touch, I remember. And I kind of got away from her. And because I'd kept me run going, she kind of just laid it off to me. And I just thought, look, I'm here now. And it just felt lovely. It just felt so nice. And I thought, I'm hitting this. Because if it goes over as a centre-back, nobody's going to really give out to me, are they? So that was me thought process. Once it came to me, I was shooting. And obviously when I looked up and I seen the keeper didn't even move, I could just see it going into the top corner. And I obviously couldn't believe it. Like, and wouldn't expect that the fourth goal was probably going to come from me that day. But delighted just to help the team. Obviously nice to get yourself on the score sheet. But just delighted that we actually broke Athlone down. Do you know what I mean? Because for a while we were kind of worried, would we? And we knew it would come eventually, but I don't think we all knew it would come from me. But look, delighted that we could score and then obviously come away with a 2-0 win.
You mentioned Jess Stapleton there as well. She's been a bit of a revelation for you at the back. She slotted in perfectly alongside you at centre half. Under 17 champion last year with playing the under 17 final last year with Shamrock Rovers, and didn't stay at Shamrock Rovers. Obviously, wanted to move on and play senior football. Noel brought her in when he came in with the team. How much has it been an experience for you playing with someone who's a few years younger than you and probably needed that bit of guidance at the start, or did she just hit the ground running like she seems to have had?
Yeah, no, she has. Look, I know Jess because, you know, with the 17s and stuff, and I knew her before that actually because she plays in Cherry Orchard, so I'd be quite local and I would have seen her play, you know, a lot of the boys' games. But she's come in and hit the ground running. And look, I always speak about, you know, young players coming in, and you always kind of think, look, they're young, aren't they? They're young. But with Stapo, you nearly forget her age, and that's the biggest compliment I can give her because she's just been exceptional for us. And look, people always say to me, you know, oh, she'll be learning loads off you. And I learn off Stapo as well. So I think we've a good mix of youth and experience. But I think Jessie can go anywhere she wants now in football if she really puts her mind to it. And she does. You know, her standards and just the way she trains all the time. And it's been a joy, honestly, when she signed, you know, I was delighted, and I just thought, you know, this would be nice now, a bit of youth and experience together, you know, and with Amanda obviously signing as well. Like we've, you know, we're proud of her clean sheets that we've kept so far. We have a real pride in that as a back four and a goalkeeper, and that's what we're driving together. But she's definitely hit the ground running, very humble kid. And as I said, like, I learned from Jess as much as I hope she's learning from me as well, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Only 3 goals conceded this year, 7 clean sheets. Not a bad record by anybody's standards. Pearl, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks very much for dropping in for a chat. The best of luck against Cork at the weekend, and we'll all have our eyes peeled, particularly in 10 days' time when Peamount make the trip across the city to Tolka Park. The very, very best of luck in the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll be chatting to you and your teammates later on in the year.
Thanks a million, Breifne. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, pretty good insight there into what's happening in Tolka Park ahead of the clash this weekend, and I suppose how the season has been going so far for Pearl, both in and out of her day job with the FAI. In terms of this weekend, though, it's all about Shels and Peamount. So maybe let's park that for one moment. We'll get your thoughts on the whole situation in a few minutes, Steph. But first, let's get the other games out of the way. Cork, they host Bohemians this weekend in Turner's Cross. It's going to be, I suppose, a battle of attrition between two sides looking to really kickstart a season that looked bright at the early days of the season with that draw in Galway for Cork and that win against Treaty on the opening day of the season. Things haven't quite gone the way both clubs would have liked since.
Yeah, and I think, look, I spoke briefly there about Cork against Shels and how they maybe had to adapt their game and maybe not be so naive. But I think the way they're trying to play will really suit this game against Bohs. Maybe might have a better chance kind of getting to play their game and try and create chances for their forwards and maybe get a couple of goals. But again, Bohs very, very solid defensively. Made it difficult for us at the start of the season. I think we broke them down late and got the goals then in the end. But yeah, two teams, as you say, who will be looking to try and get a win on the boards. And I think it'll be an interesting game.
Yeah, Galway, WFC and DLR Waves do battle over in Terryland Park. It's not called Terryland Park anymore. It is called Eamon DC Park. I keep making that mistake. But it is a great game for both sides. I suppose it's what you call a 6-pointer in the middle of the table, because if Galway win, they go level with DLR. If they lose, they're 6 points behind with a game more played. It's really that kind of a decider as to where basically their seasons are going to go. Are they going to be fighting with each other for positions, or are DLR going to put a little bit of extra space between the two teams?
Yeah, I think, look, Galway have had a little bit of a rough time, haven't they, of late? Manager leaving, a couple of absentees from the club with injury and stuff like that. But they have made a few signings. Now, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but they've got a few players coming in who I think will make a big difference. Whether they'll be ready to play against DLR, I'm not sure. But I think really for Galway, it's about really just kind of changing their season up, because, as I said, it hasn't been going well. They've had a lot of kind of changes within the club. And it's just about kind of getting themselves settled and going again. Again, DLR, I think the start of the season, I was really positive about them. I think when we played against them in UCD Bowl, I thought I was a little bit disappointed with them, I have to say. I think they sat in a little bit too much and kind of, I don't think they had much of a threat going forward, which I think when you're a team who defends really hard, you still have to have that option going forward and trying to get a goal, you know. So I think for both teams, it's probably going to be a test for them to see where they're at and see what they can do within that game. And both teams, I think, will need to look for the win in order to kind of progress themselves this season. Yeah,
of course, you touched on a couple of new signings there. Transfer window is open at the moment. Any more hints you can give us on what you might know on that? Only you had a forum where you could share this information.
I actually don't know what's being made public and what's not. I haven't been on social media that much the last few weeks. So, yeah, I
just assume it's all out there. It's fine. Just assume it's all out there, Steph.
A few rumours that a few former players might be coming back, a few players that have played within the league in different clubs who would have good experience and good players could be signing for Galway very soon.
Always good to keep our finger on the pulse on that. Wexford Youths and Treaty United, they do battle in Ferrycarrig on Saturday evening as well. Wexford, fresh off a good victory last week against DLR, they'll be looking at the top two sides in the league, knowing that if it's a stalemate in PLRL Park on Saturday, they could move within 2 points of the top of the table themselves with a victory against Treaty, which they would be expecting probably based on form. There's a lot in it for Wexford as well to maybe try and edge their way closer to yourselves and Shels.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I think they will have a firm eye on the game and Tolka between ourselves and Shels. If that does end in a draw, it gives them an opportunity to try climb up the table, as you say. Obviously, I touched on it earlier. I think they're in good form at the moment. I was very impressed with how they played against us. They're probably unfortunate not to maybe go on and win the game. I think Nisha made a few very good saves. But yeah, Wexford high and confident at the moment and in good form. We'll definitely be looking to win that game and obviously hoping for a positive result in our game against Shels.
And of course, it is in Tolka, not PRL Park, as I mentioned before. Thanks for correcting me very politely.
I wanted to correct it in a nice way, so I said I didn't say it.
But in terms of Tolka, it is, I suppose, where most people's attention outside of their own individual games will be this weekend. Shels and Peamount, there's been some crackers of games over the years. There's a lot riding on this. It's so tight at the top of the table. A draw probably keeps the whole thing alive until you meet for the third and final time this season. And neutrals, I suppose, will be looking for that. But I suppose from your point of view, you'll be looking for all 3 points again and really trying to put a bit of an extra space between yourselves and Shels at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think that's the exciting thing because, as you say, we definitely won't be going into it looking for a draw. And I don't think Shels will either. We'll both want to win the game. Our game at PRL Park, as you mentioned before, was quite tight. I think Shels were unfortunate, if I'm totally honest, to not maybe get a point in that game. We obviously came away 2-1 winners, so they'll have a little bit of revenge on the. I think they'll want to get a bit of revenge and maybe get that win against us. But our games against Shels are always good footballing games, and I'm just looking forward to playing the game. As you mentioned, in Tolka Park as well. Nice facility, good pitch, and it's exciting, and I'm really looking forward to getting going.
Yeah, it's what can you tell us about how the team is shaping up? Who's available? Anyone out? Anyone missing? Or can you share that information?
No, we haven't got anyone's missing. I think everybody's fully fit. I think the thing with us is that we've got so many players within the squad who I think if they started, it wouldn't make a huge difference. I think that's one of our big positives is that we've got players on the bench who I think would probably be itching to want to be playing or probably should, might think, oh, geez, I should be starting in this team. So that's kind of the good thing about Peamount is that we have so much competition that if there was, obviously I'd never wish injuries on anybody, if there was injuries within the squad, we'd be able to replace the players, I think, without really any kind of change to the team as such. So, look, I think we've got as far as I know, everybody's fully fit, everyone's ready to go. And yeah, full squad to pick from. So, as I said, it's exciting. I think it's going to be a cracking game. Every game between ourselves and Shels usually is. So I just can't wait to get going.
No new arrivals over at Peamount. You seem to have enough players coming out of everywhere over there at the moment. But any new arrivals into your squad? There's 1 or 2 rumours about Shels as well that I've heard going around. Noel King might be dipping back into his little black book of names from many moons ago to bring some players out of retirement or out of maybe other codes. I'll leave that to percolate for a little bit as well. You might know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't actually know who you're talking about coming out of retirement. You've got me there, I think, but I've obviously heard of girls who maybe are coming back from playing abroad or playing in different leagues, so maybe wanting to come back to play in Ireland, and I think they could be going back to Shels. But for ourselves, no, I haven't heard of anybody coming to play with us. Heather Payne was training with us, but she's obviously heading back to Florida State, and she's over in Liverpool at the moment training, I think, too. So, look, that's probably the only player who's really been around the squad who's not part of the squad as such. So other than that, no, we've no new signings. And as you mentioned, I think we've got enough players to try and keep happy as it is. So it's probably for the best that we don't have too many players coming in.
Yeah, Liverpool. A couple of Irish girls signed for Liverpool in the last week or two. I know Megan Campbell was announced during the week. Obviously, Rachel Furness from the north is already there. And there's another girl, I can't remember who it was, maybe Leanne Kiernan?
Leanne Kiernan just signed.
Yeah, she signed.
And Megan was just announced, yeah. Niamh Fahy is up there already. Yeah, good Irish contingent taking over the Liverpool team.
Absolutely, it's like the men's Liverpool team in the 80s. We got them all over the place. And anyway, Steph, I think it's going to be an exciting day tomorrow. Of course, anyone can watch it for free on loitv.ie from Tolka Park tomorrow afternoon. It promises to be an absolute cracker of a game. Thanks for joining me, Steph. As always, best of luck with the wedding planning. Don't eat too much cake. because you do need to get into those dresses, and I know that's I know nothing about it, but I know it's the thing that I'm warned about all the time. Steph, thank you so much for joining us as always, and we'll be chatting to you again next week. Win, lose, or draw tomorrow. I don't know what we're looking for as neutrals, what we're looking for. But I do know what you're looking for. Thanks very much to Pearl Slattery for giving us her time as well ahead of the game, and last week when we sat down with her for a chat. And we'll be back with you again next week. Talk to you then.